This is a story about how the president of my homeowners association, a woman who thought she was above the law, believed she could get away with murder. She thought she could push my disabled daughter from my own helicopter at 250 feet in the air, convinced nobody would ever suspect a thing. But she made one fatal, critical mistake. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin this incredible and frankly terrifying story, I'd love to know where you're joining us from today. Take a second and drop a comment below. Just tell me which country you're watching from. She had no idea who she was really dealing with. My name is Michael Carter, and I've been flying helicopters for 22 years. Most of that time has been spent as a senior rescue pilot for the Coast Guard. It's not just a job, it's a calling. I've flown straight into the teeth of hurricanes to pluck families from rooftops. I've hovered over churning angry oceans to rescue sailors from sinking ships. I've lowered myself into the smoke and chaos of burning buildings to pull survivors to safety. In my career, I've saved hundreds of lives. I've seen people at their most terrified, and I've seen them at their most grateful. But nothing in all those years of training and experience prepared me for the day I had to save my own daughter from a monster. And the truly chilling part? This monster lived right next door. Let me tell you about my daughter, Emma. She's 12 years old and she's the light of my life. Emma was born with a condition called spina bifida, which affects her spine and the use of her legs. She gets around in a wheelchair, but that chair doesn't define her. Not one bit. Emma is the bravest, smartest, and most genuinely happy kid I have ever known. She has this incredible curiosity about the world. She loves to get lost in a good book. She can beat me at any video game she puts her mind to, and she's absolutely fascinated by space, the stars, and astronauts. Her biggest dream? It's to become a pilot, just like her dad. She tells me she wants to see the Earth from above, just like I do. We live in a place called Meadowbrook. It's one of those quiet, picture-perfect suburban neighborhoods you see in movies. Nice houses, neatly manicured green lawns, friendly waves from the neighbors. Everybody knows everybody, or at least they think they do. The neighborhood is controlled by an HOA, a homeowners association, and the president of that HOA is a woman named Karen Williams. Now Karen, she was a piece of work. 48 years old with this short, practical brown hair that she always dyed a brassy blonde. She drove a silver Mercedes, always freshly washed. And she wore these expensive, crisp business clothes every single day, even on weekends, like she was always on duty. Her house was the biggest one on our street, with a lawn that looked like a putting green and a pristine white picket fence. Karen carried herself with an air of ownership, like she didn't just run the HOA, but she actually owned the very ground we all lived on. And after 8 years as president, I think she genuinely started to believe it. Karen made rules about everything. I mean, everything. The exact shade of beige you could paint your house, the precise height your grass could be before you got a warning, where you were allowed to park your car overnight, even what kind of flowers you were permitted to plant in your own front yard. If you broke one of her rules, you'd get a fine in the mail. Some were $50, some were $200. It was like she had a tax for every little imperfection, and everyone in Meadowbrook was afraid of Karen Williams. I never cared for the woman, but my philosophy was simple: stay out of her way. I'm a single dad, raising Emma on my own. Her mother, my beautiful Sarah, passed away from cancer when Emma was just 3 years old. So for the last 9 years, it's been just the two of us, me and my girl. I work hard, I come home, and I take care of my daughter. I didn't have the time or the energy for neighborhood politics or drama. But Karen developed a problem with Emma. I could see it in her eyes, in the tight, pinched look on her face whenever she saw my daughter. Karen was obsessed with everything being perfect, everything looking just so. And in her narrow, twisted way of thinking, Emma, in her wheelchair, was an imperfection. She was a blot on Karen's perfect landscape. And let me be perfectly clear, Karen was dead wrong. My Emma is perfect, just the way she is. The trouble started about 2 years back. First, I got an official letter from the HOA. It said the wheelchair ramp I'd installed at the front of my house was not in compliance with neighborhood aesthetic standards. Karen said it made the front of my house look ugly. Can you imagine? I had to go out and hire a lawyer to fight it. It cost me $3,000 I could have spent on Emma, on therapy, on a family vacation. But I won. The ramp stayed. It was a victory, but a costly one. Then, Karen started claiming that Emma's wheelchair was blocking the sidewalk when we went for our evening walks. That was an outright lie. We were always careful, always stayed on our side. But Karen called the police on us, twice. The officers would show up, see a father and his daughter out for a stroll, shake their heads, and leave. But the embarrassment, the shame of having police cars pull up beside you in your own neighborhood, it stung. The worst was last year, when Karen tried to stop Emma from using the community swimming pool. She said that because of Emma's disability, she needed special supervision that the lifeguards couldn't provide. She actually said, and I remember this word for word, that the other children might get hurt if Emma was in the pool. I saw red. I was so angry I could feel my hands shaking. But I took a deep breath, I stayed calm, and I went over Karen's head. I talked directly to the other members of the HOA board. Thankfully, they saw reason and overruled her. Emma got to use the pool, but Karen never forgot. She hated that I had stood up to her. She despised that Emma was different, and I know now she was already planning something terrible. I just didn't see it coming. The catalyst for everything was an event our neighborhood organized 3 months ago. We called it the Sky Festival. It was a charity fundraiser for the local children's hospital, a really wonderful cause. I volunteered to give helicopter rides. The idea was people would pay $100 for a 15-minute flight over the city, and every single penny would go straight to the hospital. Emma had been begging me to take her flying for years. "Dad," she'd say, her eyes wide with wonder, "I want to see what you see when you fly. I want to touch the clouds." How could I possibly say no to that? I spent 3 whole weeks preparing for Emma's flight. This wasn't just another passenger ride. I installed special heavy-duty safety straps and a 5-point harness in the passenger seat, the kind used in professional rescue operations. I checked and double-checked every system, every gauge. I even ordered a custom-made miniature flight suit for her with Emma embroidered over the pocket. The night before the festival, she was so excited she could barely sleep. Her joy was contagious. The day of the Sky Festival dawned beautiful. The sun was shining. The sky was a clear, brilliant blue, not a cloud in sight. Families started gathering at the community park around 9 in the morning. We'd set up a temporary landing pad in the big open field. Kids were running around with balloons, parents were buying hot dogs and lemonade from the stands, and everyone was in a fantastic, festive mood. You could feel the happiness in the air. I started the helicopter rides at 10 o'clock. I'd take up 3 or 4 people at a time. The views were spectacular, and everyone loved it. The kids would press their faces against the windows, pointing down and shouting, "There's my house!" Parents were snapping pictures and videos like crazy, and the donation box for the hospital was filling up fast. It felt good. It felt right. Then at 11 o'clock, Karen arrived in her silver Mercedes. She was wearing a stark white dress and high heels, looking completely out of place at a casual community picnic. She walked straight toward me, wearing this plastic, fake smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "I hope you're being very careful today. We wouldn't want any accidents." "I'm always careful, Karen," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I am a professional pilot." "Of course," she said, but then her eyes narrowed just a fraction. "But I'm especially concerned about Emma's flight. Are you sure it's safe to take her up? What if something goes wrong?" I stopped what I was doing and looked her straight in the eye. "Emma is flying today. That is final." Karen's smile widened, but her eyes turned cold, like 2 chips of ice. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with false concern, "I suppose I should come along on Emma's flight. You know, just to make sure everything is safe. For insurance purposes." My blood ran cold. I did not want this woman anywhere near my helicopter, anywhere near my daughter. But several other parents standing nearby overheard her and nodded in agreement. "That's a great idea, Karen," one of them said. "Very responsible." They had no idea. They didn't see the real Karen Williams. I was trapped. "Fine," I said, my jaw tight. "But you sit in the back seat, and you do not touch anything. Understood?" Emma's flight was scheduled for 2 o'clock. She waited all day in her wheelchair, watching every single takeoff and landing with rapt attention. Other kids would come over and talk to her. "Aren't you scared, Emma?" one of them asked. "No," Emma said, with a confidence that made my heart swell. "My dad is the best pilot in the world. I'm not scared at all." Finally, 2 o'clock arrived. I walked over to Emma, leaned down, and lifted her gently from her wheelchair. She was so light in my arms. I carried her to the helicopter and carefully placed her in the front passenger seat. I made a big show of strapping her in with the special 5-point harness, checking each buckle twice. She was beaming. "Ready, co-pilot?" I asked her. "Ready, Captain Dad," she said, her smile so huge it lit up her whole face. Karen climbed into the back seat. She fastened her seatbelt, but I noticed she was clutching her phone in her hand. "Put that away, Karen," I told her firmly. "No phones during flight." "Of course," she said, but I saw her slip it into her dress pocket instead of her purse. A small thing, but it set off a warning bell in my head. We lifted off at 2:15. The helicopter rose smoothly into the warm afternoon air. Emma let out a little gasp of pure joy and immediately pressed her face against the window. "Dad, look!" she exclaimed, pointing. "I can see our house. It's so tiny. I can see my school." I was smiling, watching her reflection in the rearview mirror. This was it. This was the moment I'd wanted for her for so long. For these few precious minutes, she wasn't a girl in a wheelchair. She was flying. She was free. We were about 250 feet up, cruising smoothly over the park. I was showing Emma how the controls worked, letting her rest her hands lightly on the cyclic. She was asking a million questions, her mind racing a mile a minute. And then I heard it. A soft but distinct click from behind me. I glanced in the mirror. Karen had unbuckled her seatbelt. "Karen," I said, my voice firm and loud over the rotor noise. "Sit down. Keep your seatbelt on." "I just need to adjust something," she said, but she wasn't adjusting her own belt. She was leaning forward, her hands reaching toward Emma's harness. A jolt of pure adrenaline shot through me. "Karen, do not touch my daughter." But the helicopter was loud, and I had to keep my eyes on the sky, my hands on the controls. Before I could react further, I heard another click, the sound of Emma's chest strap, the main safety strap, being unbuckled. "Dad?" Emma's voice was small and confused. "Why is Mrs. Williams touching my straps?" I started to turn around to shove her hands away, but at that exact moment we hit a tiny pocket of turbulence. Nothing dangerous, just a little bump, the kind you feel in an airplane. But for Emma, who was now partially unstrapped, it was enough. She slid sideways in her seat. "Dad!" Emma screamed. I looked in the mirror, and what I saw is burned into my memory, a scene I still see in my nightmares. Karen had her hands on Emma's back. She wasn't trying to pull her back. She was pushing her toward the open door of the helicopter. "Karen, no!" I roared. But she pushed hard. Emma tumbled toward the open window, her small body halfway out of the aircraft. I let go of the controls. I didn't think. I just acted. I threw my right arm back, and with every ounce of strength and reach I possessed, I grabbed a handful of Emma's flight suit. Her weight jerked my arm, and I felt a searing pain in my shoulder, but I held on. I had her. The helicopter, now uncontrolled, immediately started to spin. A violent, dizzying spiral. Warning alarms started blaring in the cockpit, a deafening chorus of beeps and sirens. Karen was screaming in the back, but it was just noise. My entire world had narrowed to my grip on my daughter's jacket. "I've got you, baby!" I shouted, my voice strained. "I've got you!" With one hand holding Emma, I fought to get my other hand back on the controls. My training, 22 years of muscle memory, took over. I'd practiced flying with one hand in simulations, but this was real. This was life and death. I wrestled the cyclic, fighting the spin, leveling the aircraft. It was the single most difficult, most terrifying maneuver of my entire life. Somehow, I got it under control. I pulled Emma, sobbing and shaking, back into her seat and immediately began an emergency descent. I didn't care about a smooth landing. I just needed to be on the ground. Now. The whole ordeal, from the push to the touchdown, lasted 60 seconds. But in that minute, my entire life flashed before my eyes. My hands were trembling so badly that I could barely grip the controls. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a wild bird. The moment the skids touched the grass of the field, I killed the engine. I flung my door open, jumped out, and ran around to Emma's side. I pulled her from the seat and crushed her to my chest. She was crying, her whole body trembling. "Dad," she sobbed into my shoulder, her voice muffled and terrified. "Mrs. Williams pushed me. She tried to push me out." "I know, baby," I said, my own voice cracking. "I know. You're safe now. Daddy's got you." People were running toward us from all directions. Parents were shouting, their faces masks of confusion and fear. "What happened? Is everyone okay?" Someone had already called 911. Then Karen climbed out of the helicopter. Her white dress was wrinkled. Her perfect hair was a mess, but she was already composing herself, already weaving her web of lies. "It was terrible," she announced loudly for everyone to hear. "The child started having some kind of episode, a seizure perhaps. I tried to help her, to hold her, but she almost fell. Thank God Michael caught her in time." I felt a white-hot rage. "That's a lie!" I shouted, my voice echoing across the field. I pointed a shaking finger at Karen. You unbuckled her harness! You pushed her! I saw you do it!" Karen looked at me, and to my utter disbelief, fake tears welled in her eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice trembling with manufactured sympathy, "I understand you're upset. You're traumatized. But you're confused about what happened. The flight was rough, and Emma was scared. I was only trying to calm her down. And the worst part?" Some of the parents nodded. One of them, a man named Tom, said, "We saw Karen reaching toward Emma, Mike. It looked like she was trying to help her." My blood ran cold. She was covering her tracks, and she was doing it perfectly. She was already painting me as the hysterical father, the pilot who'd lost his cool. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They took statements from everyone. Karen gave them her polished, rehearsed version, the helpful HOA president, the accidental near tragedy, the confused and angry father. She even had the gall to suggest I'd been flying recklessly. I told them the truth. I said, Karen Williams deliberately unbuckled my daughter's safety harness and tried to shove her out of the helicopter. But I was emotional. My face was flushed, my hands were still shaking. I could see the doubt in the lead officer's eyes. "Mr. Carter," he said, not unkindly, "we will investigate this, I promise you. But right now, there's no evidence of a crime. It looks like you prevented a terrible accident with your quick actions. You should be proud. You saved your daughter's life." "It was not an accident," I said through gritted teeth. "Karen Williams tried to murder my daughter." "That is a very, very serious accusation," the officer replied, his tone growing more formal. "Do you have any proof? Any evidence at all?" And in that moment, standing there in the middle of that field with everyone staring at me, I had to admit that I didn't. Not yet. The paramedics checked Emma over. She wasn't physically injured, just deeply shaken. They said she'd be fine physically, but I should watch her for signs of emotional trauma. That night was one of the longest of my life. Emma couldn't sleep. She'd drift off for a few minutes and then jolt awake, screaming, "I'm falling!" I sat by her bed all night long, holding her hand, stroking her hair, telling her over and over, "You're safe, sweetheart. Daddy's here. You're on solid ground. Over the next few days, a grim determination settled over me. I knew what I had seen. I knew Karen had tried to kill my little girl. But nobody believed me. Karen was the respected, powerful HOA president. I was just a single dad with what looked like a personal grudge. And then, like a bolt of lightning, I remembered. My helicopter. It has a black box. For those who don't know, a black box, or flight data recorder, is a standard piece of equipment on professional aircraft. It constantly records data, altitude, speed, heading, and every control input. And crucially, it also records cabin audio. Every word, every sound inside the cockpit. It was all there. I drove straight to the airfield. My hands were steady now, fueled by a cold, focused purpose. I accessed the black box, a small, ruggedized unit, and removed it. I took it home, connected it to my computer, and with my heart in my throat, I played back the audio from Emma's flight. At first, it was just the familiar sounds of flight, the steady thrum of the rotor, the hum of the engine. Emma's excited voice, "Dad, look at that!" My own calm replies. Then, I heard it, clear as day. Karen's voice, low and deliberate, almost a whisper, but picked up perfectly by the cockpit microphone. Nobody will know. It will look like an accident. She doesn't belong here anyway. Then, the unmistakable metallic click of Emma's harness being released. Emma's confused, frightened voice. "Dad! Why is Mrs. Williams touching my straps?" A grunt of effort from Karen, the sound of a struggle, my own shout. "Karen, no!" Emma's blood-curdling scream. The audio was real. It was raw, and it was undeniable. Karen had confessed her intent out loud. "She doesn't belong here anyway." She had tried to kill my daughter because of her disability, and she had been arrogant enough to say it out loud. I immediately called my lawyer and good friend of 15 years, David Chen. I played him the recording over the phone. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. "Michael," David finally said, his voice grim. "This is attempted murder. You need to take this to the police, right now." "Will they believe me?" I asked, the old fear creeping back in. "Karen's already got half the neighborhood convinced I'm unstable." "This isn't your word against hers anymore, Mike," David said firmly. "This is evidence, cold, hard, digital evidence. They have to investigate now. I'm coming over. We're going to the station together first thing in the morning." The next morning, David and I walked into the police station and asked to speak with Detective Sarah Rodriguez, the officer who had taken the initial report. We were shown into a small, sterile interview room. David placed my laptop on the table. "Detective Rodriguez," he said, "we have new evidence in the Carter case. I think you need to hear this." He pressed play. Detective Rodriguez listened intently, her face a neutral mask. But as the recording played out, Karen's whispered words, the click of the harness, the screams, I saw her expression change. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes grew hard and focused. When the recording ended, she sat in silence for a full 30 seconds, just processing what she had heard. Finally, she looked at me. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice low and serious. "This changes everything. I need to keep a copy of this recording as evidence. I am officially reopening the investigation into this incident. We will be bringing Mrs. Williams in for questioning immediately." "What happens now?" I asked, a wave of relief so powerful it made me feel weak. "We investigate." "Thoroughly," she said. "We will re-interview every witness. We will have our forensics team examine your helicopter, and we will confront Mrs. Williams with this evidence. If she attempted to harm your daughter, I promise you, she will face the full extent of the law." Then she gave me a look of caution. "Mr. Carter, I need to be honest with you. Mrs. Williams has significant financial resources. She will hire the best defense attorneys money can buy. This case could become a long, drawn-out battle. It could take months, maybe even years. Are you prepared for that? I didn't even have to think about it. I don't care if it takes a decade, I said, my voice steady. I want justice for Emma. The police arrested Karen at her home 2 days later. The charges were attempted murder and child endangerment. The news exploded through Meadowbrook. It was the only thing anyone could talk about. Karen Williams, the perfect HOA president, a would-be killer. People were stunned, shocked, and divided. And just as Detective Rodriguez predicted, Karen hired a legal shark. A high-priced, famous defense attorney from the city named Robert Sterling. He was in his 60s, with a head of distinguished silver hair and a wardrobe of suits that cost more than my car. He had a reputation for winning cases that seemed hopeless. He went on the attack immediately. He challenged the audio recording, calling it unclear and open to interpretation. He argued that Karen's words were taken out of context. He even floated the insidious suggestion that I, in my distraught state, might have edited or fabricated the recording. But he didn't stop there. Robert Sterling dug into my past. He found out about the deep depression I suffered after my wife died. He discovered I'd been to therapy. He used all of it to paint a picture of me as an unstable, grieving man who was lashing out at a convenient target. The trial began 6 months later in the county courthouse, a grand, imposing building of stone and marble. The courtroom was packed every single day. Our quiet suburban neighborhood was now a house divided, with people taking sides, sitting on opposite sides of the aisle. The prosecutor for the state was a young, brilliant woman named Lisa Park. She was only 30, but David assured me she was a pit bull in the courtroom, known for her meticulous preparation and relentless pursuit of justice. The trial lasted for 3 grueling weeks. Lisa Park played the audio recording for the jury. She called in audio forensic experts who testified under oath that the recording was completely authentic and had not been tampered with in any way. They analyzed Karen's whispered words. Nobody will know. Proof of premeditation. It will look like an accident. Proof of intent to deceive. She doesn't belong here anyway. The motive. Blatant prejudice. Lisa Park argued that these 3 sentences were a confession. They laid bare Karen's entire evil plan. But Robert Sterling was slick. He didn't deny the words. He twisted them. He argued that Karen was talking about Emma unbuckling her own harness. He claimed Karen was worried that if Emma accidentally undid her straps, nobody would know how it happened, and it would look like an accident. He said, "She doesn't belong here," meant she didn't belong in the front seat, that it was too dangerous for her. It was a ridiculous, convoluted argument, but Robert Sterling was so smooth, so persuasive, that he made it sound almost plausible to a jury that wanted to believe such evil couldn't exist in their midst. The day I testified was the most important day of the trial for me. I sat in the witness box, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. And I did. I looked each juror in the eye and described in stark detail what I saw in that mirror. I described Karen's hands on my daughter's back, the deliberate push, the sheer terror of those few seconds. "Mr. Carter," Lisa Park asked me, "in your 22 years as a professional pilot, have you ever seen someone accidentally unbuckle another person's safety harness?" "Never," I stated firmly. "Those harnesses are designed to prevent accidental release. It takes a conscious, deliberate action, pushing a button and pulling a strap simultaneously." Karen knew exactly what she was doing. Then it was Robert Sterling's turn. He circled me like a predator. "Mr. Carter," he began, his voice oozing false sympathy. "You've been through a lot, haven't you? The tragic loss of your wife, your struggle with clinical depression, the therapy sessions, the medication. Is it possible, just possible, that your mental and emotional state that day clouded your judgment? That you misinterpreted Mrs. Williams's frantic attempts to help as something sinister?" "No," I said, my voice flat and cold. "I saw what I saw. Karen Williams tried to kill my daughter. He also tried to attack my professionalism. He suggested that my flying had been reckless, that the helicopter had jerked because of my poor piloting, not because of any air current. He tried to shift the blame for the entire incident onto my shoulders. But Lisa Park was ready for him on the redirect. She had me detail my rescue work, my hundreds of successful missions, my spotless safety record over 2 decades. "Mr. Carter," she asked, "are you trained to handle in-flight emergencies?" "Yes, extensively." "And on the day of your daughter's flight, when you had to catch your falling child with one hand and regain control of a spinning aircraft with the other, did that training serve you?" "Yes," I said, looking directly at the jury. "My training is the only reason Emma is alive today. When Emma testified, you could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom." She sat in her wheelchair beside the witness stand, looking so small yet so incredibly brave. Lisa Park approached her gently. "Emma," she said, her voice soft, "can you tell us what you remember about the flight that day?" Emma's voice was quiet but crystal clear. "Mrs. Williams unbuckled my straps. I felt her do it. I asked her why she was doing it, but she didn't answer me. Then she pushed me toward the door. I screamed for my dad." "Are you absolutely sure Mrs. Williams pushed you?" Lisa Park asked. "Yes," Emma said without a hint of doubt. "I felt her hands on my back. She pushed me hard. I wasn't confused. I know what happened." Robert Sterling knew better than to attack a child, especially one in a wheelchair. He was exceedingly gentle with her. "Emma," he said, "is it possible you were frightened by the flight? That the helicopter moving suddenly and you misunderstood Mrs. Williams's actions? Maybe she was just trying to tighten your straps to make you feel more secure?" Emma looked him right in the eye. "No, sir," she said. "She pushed me. She wanted me to fall." The most dramatic moment of the entire trial came when Karen Williams took the stand in her own defense. She was dressed in a simple, modest blue dress with no jewelry. Her lawyers had coached her perfectly. She looked humble, contrite, and she cried. She cried on cue. She said she would never, ever hurt a child. She said she had 3 children of her own and that she loved all kids. She claimed she was only trying to adjust Emma's harness because it looked loose, that the turbulence caused Emma to slip, and that she had tried to grab her but couldn't. "This has all been a horrible, terrible misunderstanding," Karen sobbed. But Lisa Park was waiting. She walked calmly to the podium. "Mrs. Williams," she began, "let's talk about your history with the Carter family." She walked Karen through every incident: the wheelchair ramp, the police calls, the swimming pool ban. "You have a pattern of targeting the Carter family, don't you?" Lisa Park pressed. "Specifically targeting Emma because of her disability." "No!" Karen protested. "I was just doing my job as HOA president. I have to enforce the rules." "Rules about wheelchair ramps being ugly?" Lisa Park shot back. "Rules about disabled children not being allowed in swimming pools?" "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant, isn't it, Mrs. Williams?" Lisa Park's voice was like a whip crack. "You believe Emma Carter does not belong in your perfect neighborhood. You said so yourself on the audio recording. She doesn't belong here anyway." "Who are you talking about, Mrs. Williams?" Karen's face flushed a deep, blotchy red. I don't remember saying that." "The recording does not lie," Lisa Park said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm. "You tried to kill Emma Carter because you think disabled children are a blight on Meadowbrook. Isn't that the truth?" "No!" Karen shrieked, her composure shattering. "That is not true!" But the damage was done. The jury had seen the mask slip. They had seen the real, seething anger beneath the fake tears. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They were the longest 48 hours of my life. I stayed at home with Emma, trying to act normal, trying to watch movies and play games, but both of us were just waiting for the phone to ring. "Dad," Emma said, trying to comfort me, "everything's going to be okay. The truth always wins." I wished I had her unwavering faith. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, my phone rang. It was David. "Michael," he said, his voice tense. "The jury has a verdict. We need to be in court in 1 hour." My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I drove Emma to the courthouse, holding her hand the entire way. The courtroom was once again packed. the air thick with tension. Karen sat at the defense table, her face a pale, waxy mask. Her husband and children sat directly behind her, their faces drawn and anxious. The judge entered. The jury filed in. None of them would look at Karen. My stomach dropped. Was that a good sign or a bad sign? The judge spoke. Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict? A woman in the front row of the jury box stood up. We have, Your Honor. She was handed a piece of paper. The entire room held its breath. In the case of the State versus Karen Williams on the charge of attempted murder in the second degree, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Karen let out a wail and collapsed forward onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. Her family burst into tears. The judge slammed his gavel down over and over. Order! Order in the court! When the noise subsided, the foreperson spoke again. On the charge of aggravated child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. I wrapped my arms around Emma and held her tight. She was crying, and I realized I was crying too. Tears of relief, of vindication, of sheer exhaustion. We did it, Dad, she whispered into my chest. We did it. Karen was sentenced 3 weeks later. The judge gave her 15 years in a state penitentiary. As he read the sentence, he looked directly at her. Mrs. Williams, he said, his voice echoing with disapproval. Your actions were calculated, cruel, and motivated by a deep-seated prejudice against a disabled child. You held a position of trust in your community, and you grotesquely abused that power. You have shown no genuine remorse for your actions, only remorse for having been caught. You deserve every single day of this sentence. Her lawyers filed an appeal, of course, but the appeals court reviewed the case and upheld the conviction. Karen Williams was going to prison. After the trial, I thought life would simply return to normal, but Meadowbrook had been permanently changed. The neighborhood was fractured. Many people felt immense guilt for not believing us initially. Others felt shame for having supported Karen for so long. The HOA, Karen's personal kingdom, imploded. 2 board members resigned in disgrace within days. The remaining members were voted out at the next emergency election. And the new board's first and only official act was to vote to dissolve the Homeowners Association entirely. Meadowbrook was finally free. Slowly, painstakingly, the neighborhood began to heal. People came to our door one by one to apologize. They told Emma and me how sorry they were, that they should have seen the real Karen, that they should have stood by us. And Emma, in her infinite wisdom, surprised every single one of them by offering her forgiveness. It's okay, she told our neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who was weeping on our porch. You didn't know, but now you do. That's what matters. Even more astonishing, Emma eventually forgave Karen, not right away, but over time. Dad, she told me one evening, I don't want to be angry anymore. Being angry all the time just makes me feel tired. I just want to be happy. You, I told her, my voice thick with emotion, are so much stronger than I am. I learned from the best, she said with a soft smile. 2 years passed. Emma turned 14. She was thriving in high school, her sights set firmly on studying aerospace engineering in college. The dream of becoming a pilot was still alive and well. I still flew for the Coast Guard, but I'd also started a new chapter, giving talks at local schools about aviation safety and, more importantly, about standing up against bullying and discrimination. Emma would sometimes come with me. She'd tell her story to other kids, talking about what it means to be different and where you find the courage to be brave. I heard through the grapevine that Karen was in the prison library, that she was taking classes. I hoped for her sake that she was truly learning that a person's worth has nothing to do with how they walk or what they look like, and everything to do with the content of their character. Then last month, Emma came to me with a request. Dad, she said, I want to fly with you again. My heart skipped a beat. Are you sure, sweetie? Yes, she said, her eyes clear and determined. I want to go up one more time. I want to remember the good part of flying, not just the bad part. I don't want her to take that away from me, too. I was nervous, but I understood. We went up on a bright, sunny Saturday morning, just the two of us. No charity event, no audience, just a father and his daughter. I triple-checked every lock, every strap, every system. We flew over Meadowbrook. Emma looked down at the quiet streets, the houses, and the parks, and she smiled. "It looks different from up here," she said. "Everything looks so peaceful." "It is peaceful now," I said. "We helped make it that way," she corrected me gently. "Together." As we circled over the park where the Sky Festival had been held, Emma grew quiet. Then she said, "Dad, do you think Mrs. Williams is sorry? Really sorry?" I thought about it. "I hope so, Emma. I truly hope she's learned something." "Me too," Emma said, "because I learned something too." "What did you learn?" I asked. "I learned that being different is okay. It's what makes me, me. I learned that people who try to hurt you are usually just scared of things they don't understand. And—" She paused, looking at me. "I learned that my dad will always catch me when I fall." I had to wipe the tears from my eyes so I could see the controls. "Always, baby," I managed to say. "Always." We landed back at the airfield. Emma was smiling, a real, genuine, joyful smile that I hadn't seen in years. "Same time next week?" she asked, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Absolutely," I said, my heart full. "We're a team. Best pilot and co-pilot in the sky," she declared. "That is our story. It's a story about hate, but also about justice. It's about fear, but more so about courage. It's about falling, and about being caught. Emma fell from the sky because someone thought she didn't belong, but she survived. She proved to everyone that being different doesn't make you less. It makes you special. It makes you you. Today, Emma volunteers with a disability rights organization. She mentors other kids who face discrimination. She shares her story to show them that they can overcome anything, that their challenges don't define their futures. Our neighborhood is different now. Better, kinder, more accepting. There are 3 other families with disabled children who have moved into Meadowbrook in the last year. They told me they chose our neighborhood because they'd heard it was a welcoming, understanding place. Emma is friends with all of their kids. Sometimes in my quiet moments, my mind wanders back to that helicopter. What if I'd been 1 second slower? What if my arms had been an inch shorter? What if I hadn't spent 20 years training for worst-case scenarios? But I don't let myself dwell on the what-ifs for long, because the what is what matters. I caught my daughter. She is alive. She is thriving. Justice was served. And in the end, love proved to be stronger than hate. Karen Williams tried to destroy us. She tried to push my beautiful, vibrant daughter out of a helicopter because Emma didn't fit her narrow, cruel idea of perfection. But Emma is perfect. She always has been. And Karen, sitting in her prison cell, had to learn the hardest lesson of her life. She learned that a person's value isn't measured by how they look or what their bodies can do. It's measured by the kindness in their hearts and the courage in their souls. My Emma has both in abundance. She always will. That might be the end of our story, but in so many ways, it's really just the beginning. Because every single day, Emma wakes up and makes a choice. She chooses to be brave. She chooses to be kind. She chooses to forgive. And she chooses to show the world, through her actions and her spirit, that being different doesn't make you less. It makes you extraordinary. I am prouder than any father has a right to be. And I will always be there to catch her when she falls. 5 years after Karen Williams was led away in handcuffs, long after the news vans had left and the neighborhood had found its new peaceful rhythm, something arrived in my mailbox that I never expected to see. It was a plain, white envelope. The return address was printed neatly in the corner. The name and address of the women's correctional facility where Karen was serving her 15-year sentence. My hands began to shake. I stood there in my kitchen just staring at it. Part of me wanted to rip it up and throw it away, unread. But a deeper, quieter part was curious. I sat down at the table and carefully slid it open. It was a handwritten letter. 3 pages long. The handwriting was neat, precise, almost like she'd practiced what she was going to say. "Dear Michael," it began. "I do not expect you to read this letter. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even expect you to believe a word I am about to write. But I need to write this anyway. I need to tell you that I am sorry. I have had a lot of time to think in here. A lot of time to reflect on the person I was and the terrible things I did. I was raised by parents who believed that perfect was the only acceptable standard. They were strict, unyielding people. I was punished for every mistake, big or small. They taught me that people who were different, who looked different, who acted different, who were different, were somehow less than us, less valuable, less worthy. I know now, with every fiber of my being, that this is a lie. But it took losing my freedom, my family, my entire life, to finally see the truth. She wrote about the mandatory therapy she'd been attending, about the books she'd read on prejudice and acceptance. She wrote about working in the prison library alongside a woman who used a wheelchair, and how ashamed she felt when she realized this woman was one of the kindest, smartest, most valuable people she'd ever met. "I think about Emma every single day," she wrote. "I think about what I tried to do to her. I think about how close I came to extinguishing a beautiful, brilliant light. There is no excuse for what I did. None. I was cruel. I was evil. I was wrong." At the end of the letter, she asked for nothing. No forgiveness, no reply. She just said she hoped Emma was happy and healthy, and that she hoped I had found some measure of peace. I sat at that table for a long time, just holding the pages. Then I showed it to Emma. She was 17 now, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, busy with college applications and dreams of her future. She read the letter slowly and carefully, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she looked at me. "What do you think, Dad?" she asked. "Do you think she really means it?" "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly. "But I think she might." Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window. Then she said, "I want to write back to her." I was taken aback. "Emma, are you sure? After everything?" "Yes," she said, her voice calm and certain. "I forgave her a long time ago, remember? But maybe she needs to hear that. Maybe it will help her heal, too." So, Emma wrote a short, simple letter back to Karen. She told her that she forgave her. She told her she was happy, doing well in school, and planning for college. She told her that she hoped Karen could find a way to forgive herself someday. Karen wrote back. And over the next 2 years, a strange and cautious correspondence began between them. They weren't friends. They would never be friends. But there was something profoundly healing in those exchanged letters. For both of them. When Emma turned 18, she came to me with another request, one that stunned me even more. "Dad," she said, "I think I want to go see her. I want to visit Karen in prison." My first instinct was a hard, resounding no, but Emma was an adult now. She could make her own choices. And if this was something she felt she needed to do, I would support her. I would drive her. We made the 3-hour drive to the Women's Correctional Facility on a cold, gray winter morning. The building was all concrete and barbed wire, a bleak and forbidding place. We went through security, were stamped with invisible ink, and were led into a large, sterile visiting room with vending machines along one wall. Then they brought Karen in. She looked old. Her hair was completely gray now, and she'd let it grow out. Her face was lined, and she moved slowly as if carrying a great weight. When she saw Emma, her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Emma," she whispered, her voice raspy. You're so grown up. Hello, Mrs. Williams, Emma said, her voice calm and steady. I'm so sorry, Karen said, the tears beginning to fall. I know I've said it in letters, but seeing you here, alive and so beautiful, I need to say it to your face. I am so deeply, profoundly sorry for what I tried to do to you. Emma looked at her for what felt like an eternity. Then she said softly, I forgive you. I have for a long time. But you need to forgive yourself now, Mrs. Williams. You need to use the rest of your life to do good things. Karen nodded, crying openly now. I'm trying, she choked out. I teach other women in here how to read. I help those who are getting out soon learn job skills, how to write a resume. It's not much, but it's something. It's something, Emma agreed. We stayed for about half an hour. We talked about normal things. Emma's plans for college, Karen's work in the prison library, the books she was reading. It was surreal sitting there making small talk with the woman who tried to murder my child. But it was also, in a way I never could have anticipated, healing. As our time ended and we got up to leave, Karen called out to Emma. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Emma gave her a small, sad smile. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mrs. Williams, she said. Even you. On the long, quiet drive home, I finally asked Emma the question that had been burning in my mind. Why, honey, why did you need to see her? She looked out at the passing landscape, thoughtful. Dad, she said, I needed to see that she was human. Not a monster, not some evil villain from a storybook, just a human being who made a terrible, terrible mistake. It helps me understand. Hurt people. And if we ever want to break that cycle, someone has to choose forgiveness first. I decided a long time ago that I wanted to be that someone. I shook my head in wonder. When did you get so wise? She reached over and squeezed my hand. I learned from the best, she said. Today, Emma is in her second year of college, studying aerospace engineering, just as she always dreamed. She's on the dean's list. She has a great group of friends. Her future is so bright it almost hurts to look at. Karen Williams will be eligible for parole in 3 more years. I don't know if she'll get it. I don't know what will become of her after she's released, if she is. But I hope the change in her is real. I hope she spends whatever time she has left trying to make up for the darkness she brought into the world. Our story taught me more about life than any flight manual ever could. It taught me that evil can wear a friendly face and live in the house next door. But it also taught me that forgiveness isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. It taught me that people, even the worst of us, are capable of change. And most of all, it taught me that my daughter is the strongest, bravest, most compassionate person I will ever have the honor of knowing. Emma didn't let that day in the helicopter define her. She didn't let it fill her with bitterness or rage. Instead, she used it as fuel. Fuel to become stronger. Fuel to become kinder. She transformed her pain into a powerful purpose, and that, more than any guilty verdict, is the truest victory of all. Karen Williams tried to push Emma out of the sky, but my daughter, she learned to fly anyway. And now, she's soaring higher than that woman, in her prison of concrete and regret, could ever possibly imagine.